Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the October edition of the book club. You know, spooky season, spooky month.
I
Allie,
know.
it's like Halloween, fall. How are you feeling?
I love fall. I love Halloween. It's actually my favorite holiday, and I think that our book club pick of the month really speaks to that. But things have been going on. We are actually pre-recording this episode just because come the end of the month, I'll be out on maternity leave.
We're so
Another reason
excited.
why we love October. But yeah, we've just been getting ready. I still got out my fall decorations, still got out some Halloween decor. But it's basically all about baby right now. So we're just trying to like gear up, get ready.
Did you get any baby Halloween decorations?
I did get her an outfit so she
Yes.
could be. I don't know if you guys have seen this online. Like, I'm gonna put that baby in a pumpkin. Like, have you seen that? She's not gonna have enough neck support to be in a pumpkin. So I got her like a pumpkin like outfit.
Does it
So
have
she'll
like
have
a
the
hat?
hat?
Yes.
Yeah, the booties, and then obviously Kamal and I have to match her. Like,
Obviously.
caption potentially could be like one more pumpkin to the patch. You know,
Yes.
so we have some good things coming.
I love
But
this. I'm so
yeah,
excited.
just gearing up for her and getting ready. How about yourself? Like, I know you're a lover of all things fall.
Absolutely. I just finally put out my fall and like Halloween decorations. I forgot I had them, and then somebody here actually was talking about like decorating for fall, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I could do that. I have stuff.
I
So
can do that. Yeah.
So now we got the fall vibes. We got like the pumpkin apple candle going.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, had
The
to break out
scents.
the little skull shirt
I
today,
know.
you
Everybody
know.
peep the skull shirt.
You know it. But yeah, we had to really dive into the vibes of Region Hoodoo right here.
I know. More of like a textbook than anything else.
Yeah.
But it really kind of gave us this semblance of paranormal, supernatural, and also local,
Mhm.
or, you know, relatively local, because we got some Pennsylvania moments. We have some hyper local Lancaster moments here, Philadelphia. But to be part of the book club, you don't just be a part. You
Yes.
embody it. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
absolutely.
So you get a spooky pick, you then make your whole life spooky
Gotta
as a
be
result.
spooky.
And speaking of which, we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about horror in general, right?
Yes.
Because Maxim actually references why people even enjoy horror, because I think some of it really ranges,
Yeah.
right? We have our fans of gore,
Mhm.
we have our fans of aliens. Then we have the people who kind of are into like the Exorcist vibes, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And there's witches, warlocks. There's so many ways you can go.
So many. I personally am not a horror fan. I am a big giant baby. I didn't watch my first horror movie until I was like in college, like surrounded by friends, like had a massive sleepover afterwards, so nothing could get me, you know,
Lights on.
lights on, you know, all of that sort of thing. But that being said, I did really enjoy this book, and it really, I think, gave me more of an insight into like why people might enjoy horror, because I didn't really get that. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I am a horror fan. Like, we like I definitely like it more around Halloween than anything else. Like, I'm
Yeah.
a festive person, so it's like every year during Christmas-ish, like we watch Harry Potter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's just tradition.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have our favorites there. But why don't you say what he kind of wrote about in this book about why people like horror first and foremost?
Absolutely. So I'm just going to read this like little, he talks a lot about it, but there's this one little paragraph that sort of like summarizes, I think, what the whole draw, I guess, of horror is. It says, watching horror films provides us with a bizarre yet practical therapy. We use the outside monsters to conquer the internal ones, locked away in a repressed compartment of our design. And so when I read that, I was kind of like, okay, like, you know, that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
Maxim goes on to say like how like people used like some of the horrifying things that happened, like the Blob was based on like a true story, that sort of thing. So like people took these fears, the nuclear war he's talking about, or the proposed potential nuclear war, Cold War. He's talking about how like filmmakers used that to sort of like inform the themes of their horror movies, and it gave this like outlet almost for people to like confront their horrors, but like in a way that was comfortable still.
Yeah, like a safe escape. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like taking myself out of my everyday life. You know, some of these things feel a little far-fetched, but actually could happen. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I'm experiencing it from behind the screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I resonate with that. I mean, some of the movies I like the most are the most campy, you know what I mean? Like, that don't feel like they could be real. Like,
Yeah.
okay, a part of them can be. So I'm a big Freddy Krueger girl. Like, I
Nice.
love Nightmare on Elm. And one of those, right, he doesn't reference that in this book, but I think with that, it's almost like when it was produced really makes it so special because it doesn't feel like could happen to me, but like it kind of feels like it could happen to me.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Or like some of the Saw movies I really like. Again, he chooses his quote victims based off of like what they've done in their lives, if they're like past criminals or if they've done something horrible to someone else. Like it's almost a teaching moment, I guess, for those people, even though they're going through these crazy mechanical horror, like gore scenarios to save themselves. So those are some of the ones I like. I also love Halloween. I think everybody can kind of like, resonate with Michael Myers a little bit. So some of those I can see it's like, okay, like Stalkers is Michael Myers. That can happen on an everyday basis. I mean, people invading your dreams, I don't know. Maybe more so like the fact that you can have nightmares and like they can feel super real. And then almost this vigilante, right, in Saw coming out and like, you get a second chance at life. This is what you've done in the past. Like, fight for your life.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah, literally. So, I mean, those are just some of the ones that I've seen that I like. But I think that also kind of goes back to what he was saying. Almost that experience without experience.
Yeah, makes it like digestible.
Yeah. And then you said, so because you don't really watch, what was the first one you saw? I'm interested.
So I tried to watch it. It got about the new one.
Oh my god,
the
yeah,
new one,
I love the It's.
Not the old one.
I watched those last month though. I was like gearing up for
a little bit early.
Yeah, so okay, the newer It's. Okay.
Yeah, so I tried to watch that one, got about 10 minutes into it, and was like, yo, we gotta turn this off. But before that, I think the first one that I watched was either The Boy, like the puppet one, or the Bye Bye Man. It was that one. Bye Bye Man, yeah. And yeah, that one was really bad too. Well, not that the movie was bad, but it scared me really badly because I watched that freshman year of college, and my dorm at the time, there was a train that ran right behind it. And in the movie, the train, like that noise is the sound of like the boogeyman coming. So yeah.
So it was like you were really
It was like an immersive experience. Yeah.
It was happening while it was happening in the film. Then after that, like during the night, you woke up and you're like,
I did.
Scared.
I was like, and like that train, like I had never woken up from that train before, and then that night I was like, hello.
Never heard it before.
Nope.
Now it's like ringing in your ears nonstop.
I was like, hello.
It's good too because I think it is also one of those ones where he basically feeds on fear.
Yeah.
And he finds your innermost fears and he brings them out, and
it works.
It works. Yeah, it works for him until it doesn't anymore. But it takes years and years and years and a lot of terror to get to that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, not some of the books or movies that were mentioned in here. There was a lot though, and everything that he the way this book is presented is similar to a textbook. So they'd have a chapter, you'd have kind of the key players in the chapter, and then it would talk about the main events or things that those people did or how it related to the cinema, right? So I thought that was interesting. And one of the things that he touched on were a lot of these mine disasters. Yeah. People getting caught up in the darkest depths of mines and whether they survived or didn't survive. And a few of those incidents actually happened in Pennsylvania, right? So the one was the Shepton mines, which I think is a pretty famous one. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I had never heard of it before this book, but it's kind of crazy because like it's kind of right in our backyard. It sort of happened like around, I think it was near Centralia, which isn't that far away. But yeah, these two guys or three actually. The one was never found. No body, no nothing. He's just gone. But two other guys were trapped down in the mines, and they were down there for like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, a while.
Yeah,
without kind of food or water.
Yeah, just hanging out and
hoping for somebody to come down.
Yeah. And once they got out and were rescued, they were interviewed like by a bunch of different people separately together, psychologists, neurologists, police officers, like everything.
Yeah.
And they were talking about these like crazy like supernatural events. Like they saw visions, they saw these humanoid creatures. They swear that, I forget which pope it was, but the good
John
pope.
Paul or Pope John the 23rd.
The 23rd, okay.
Yeah, Pope John the 23rd, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were saying that like he's the reason that they like survived, like just because the presence of this like benevolent, I guess, like person down there.
Mhm.
Another person, I guess, to like, you know, kind of pull them through.
Yeah, like I think they were all kind visions, which
Yeah.
was interesting.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that they almost gave them hope that somebody was coming down.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing, after you said that, after all the interviews, after double checking their stories, after neurologists, psychologist, what did you say?
Psychologist.
Psychologist, sorry.
Good.
Everybody came together. They said no lack of oxygen, no, lack of water, lack of sleep, nothing was contributing to these stories. So
Mhm.
they really felt as if that they actually occur. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like
yeah.
everybody was kind of on board with them actually happening.
Yeah, everybody was sort of like none of this stuff could have happened, but you guys also are not lying. Like
Yeah.
everybody believed them. Everybody
Yeah.
was like, okay, like especially like their stories lined up too closely for like either of them to have like concocted one or like for them to have like tried to, you know, like make it up basically.
Right.
And
I thought it was interesting too when they introduced like Pope John,
Mhm.
right? He had all these amazing works in his life, all these amazing miracles, and he had died recently prior to him appearing to these 2 or potentially 3 people down there. We don't know what happened to the third or
Yeah.
when the third went missing, but when he appeared, it was almost like because he was so holy and religious and he was canonized and he's a saint essentially, they were like, oh, this is amazing, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I thought that was a nice little, not only do we know who they saw, some of them weren't really like identifiable, but it was interesting how Pope John had all these things happen
Mhm.
and then came to them in a
Yeah.
vision down there.
I thought it was so cute too how the older dude was saying that like, he didn't want to like tell or say anything to the younger dude about like the Pope being there because he was like, if I'm the only one seeing this dude and I say something to like the other guy, he's gonna go nuts.
Yeah.
And like it's like
It's
we
gonna
don't
freak
need
him
that.
out,
Yeah. But
It's
then the
gonna
other
cause
guy
issues.
and then the other guy was like, who's that dude over there? Like so like that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like joint, I don't know, maybe they were hallucinations, but nobody knows, but like to have like a joint sort of like hallucination like that,
experience,
crazy.
right?
Yeah.
And then that's why I think the supernatural is a really great like way to describe this,
Yeah.
because it can't really be explained, you know what I mean? And based off the research that was done,
Mhm.
nothing's really lining up, but like they both experienced the same exact experience.
Yeah.
So like how can that be? So it's like it's something that can't be described, so it's like the best word. It's just like it happened, it was
It happened.
supernatural. We're all on board and here we are. And
Yeah.
it got like lots and lots of media attention.
Yeah, I was surprised when they were saying about like, look, obviously you and I work in news, journalism,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. When they were saying that like people were coming from all over the world to like cover this mine disaster, I was like,
Right.
what? Like that's crazy. Like it must have been. I mean, I'm sure it was, but it must have been a huge deal.
Yeah, and I mean even like present day, right? These things happen. Like think about the soccer team that was
Mhm.
trapped. Like
Yes.
it happens like too frequently probably. I
Yeah.
don't know like how we get, if there's tours or like there's always something that is basically what do you like advertised, and
Yeah.
then people go and check it out, whether it's a tour or this or that, and then it's like something like catastrophic happens and people get trapped down there, and it's like crazy. But for them to then have all these accounts from
Yeah.
it, like I don't think anyone's had similar accounts to that. Like they were just kind of in survival mode trying to get out. I also think that the timeline, I can't remember how long some of these other mines were happening, but it felt like 2 weeks was a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially
to be
like if
down
they
there.
didn't really have any like rations. I think they said that they might have like the rescue crews might have like lowered them some
Something.
supplies. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but like even with that, like that's still a long time to survive down there in like
Yeah.
the dark.
Keep your wits about you.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So I thought that was a big part of this. I mean, when you pick this up, and if you have read this, there's so many different things that get brought up. So that was one of the big ones I thought that we would want to talk about,
Yeah.
which is wild. I mean, like I've never thought about like how I would, when your fight or flight kicks in.
Yes.
And you're like, I don't know like how I would do
yeah.
if I got caught up in a crazy situation like this. And I mean, I feel like they handled it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And then having these people or these, visions come to them, whatever it was, it almost was like, okay, we're almost there.
Yeah.
We're almost
Yeah.
there. So whatever it takes, you know, to get out and hold on, I
Yeah.
think is kind of the moral of that story.
Definitely.
Just crazy.
Yeah, I
think.
can't imagine being trapped down there. Like, even just, I don't know how well any of you can see the cover, but like the cover, it looks like it's the bottom of a mine shaft, and that's kind of scary looking. I wouldn't want to be down there.
Definitely not for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah,
either.
no.
So that was one of the ones that's been referenced. Now, another one we kind of talked about and you kind of glazed over, and actually a place that Kayleigh has been
Yes.
is Centralia.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about it.
Yeah, so Centralia, so the experience that I had there and the sort of reason that it's in the book are completely different. So I thought that was really interesting when I was reading the book because it is closed off now. I believe they closed off during the pandemic, but there used to be this spot in Centralia. It was like this long stretch of abandoned highway, but it was all like graffitied up. Like people would go there, take walks, graffiti, and it was just this like kind of cool place to hang out, get some recreation. So I was there with a couple friends on like a nice sunny day in March, you know, just like walking around, looking at the graffiti, taking pictures. I have like loads of pictures of these colorful, like long, bright streets. But the crazy thing is that Centralia is like this abandoned, like old coal miner town. There's this huge fire raging underneath that's been burning for like, I don't know how many years, but probably I think more than 20. I think they said it might have started in like the 80s or something like that.
Yeah.
That sounds right. But so like Maxim is talking about all of these like sort of like cryptids and like freaky things and like how eerie the place is at night because there's literally like smoke coming up from the ground from the fires. Yeah, which like you can see a little bit in the day, but like probably I guess not as much as you would see it like at dusk, you know, when like the light comes through.
Right,
it
it's
and
almost
everything.
like a low fog, essentially, but it's because of a fire burning from underneath, from within, because he refers to it as the gateway to hell, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's probably a very apt description.
Yeah, and it's in Northeast PA, right?
Yeah, it's like near
far.
Bloomsburg.
Yeah, okay. So not far at all. And I thought that's interesting because that's something like literally like 2 hours away.
In our backyard.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't think about it. Like you hear people say about like ghost towns and this and that.
Yeah.
And it's funny to hear your perspective because you did go during the day. Like, imagine being in a film, and you're like with your friends and you're just come across this graffiti.
Bopping around.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, something happened. We have to stay the night. And then everything changes.
That'd be so scary.
Flip the switch.
Yeah.
Haunted ghost town.
Yeah.
Things are coming up from the ground and it's like fire creatures or whatever.
See Bigfoot walk past.
Yes. Literally. And I mean, that's another famous area, I guess, too, like that people always reference, but you just don't know until you go.
Yeah.
You don't know until you know, I guess.
I wonder too, like how, because like he was talking about how like a lot of the residents moved out because they were essentially forced out because of the fire and like the fumes are toxic and everything. The government like sort of bought up all the houses and land and stuff and said like move, like save yourselves sort of thing.
Right. You don't want to live here.
Yeah, exactly. But like that almost sounds like a premise for a horror movie too. Like the whole like I don't know, just the whole like having to move out. I'm sure there are people that stayed. Like what happened?
What happened to them?
Yeah.
What came of them? Yeah, and like you know, visitors maybe they got caught up and they break down.
Yeah.
And then now they're in Centralia and people are like, you want to get out of here?
Yeah.
And they're trapped. Like. It just seems like the perfect storm, right? And it's literally a real life place.
Yeah.
Which is what kind of this book is here to tell us. Like there's a lot of things that people pull from actual historic times and events and you know, they're used in cinema and books and movies because it's just like you can't write this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like so real. You can't write it.
You can't even make it up.
And like that's the other thing is like a lot of cannibalism in here, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
You know, just references to cannibalism. Also, like references to, you know, Bigfoot, UFOs, which we've known that. I mean, Pennsylvania country, like it's one of the top places. He said that, you know, for Bigfoot sightings or like these conversations because you're just in the woods in a lot of these areas. But there's like even witches and warlocks, like. One of the big, I'm trying to think of his name, but he talks a lot about like this one occult leader in Lancaster, I believe, who was like super into, you know,
Yeah.
the Wiccan beliefs. And I mean, right there you go. It's like witches, warlocks, it's all happening. And
Yeah.
like, these are things people pull for movies all the time. You know
And
what I
it's
mean?
like happening right like in
Cannibalism.
our neighbor's house.
Yeah,
Like
easy. They're like, oh, we want to spice up this movie. We're going to throw that in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Bigfoot. I mean, there's like Bigfoot adjacent things all the time.
Yeah.
Like, think about all of the movies that have like quote monsters. Godzilla, like,
Yes.
it's brought up in here.
That was like one thing that I liked about this book too. Like I mean, I just said that I'm not really into horror, and I think by extension of that, I'm not super into like the whole paranormal stuff either.
Mhm.
But like, so like I never really did any like Bigfoot research, like Godzilla research, anything like that. So like this was a cool little resource to sort of get like my background that I never had
Right.
on those things.
And UFOs, I mean, they just, you know, in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Said like, okay, yeah, like aliens exist.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like, how does this hold up now? Like, is this like I mean, I know the Bigfoot, in the book, some of the Bigfoot research has been debunked,
Mhm.
but maybe some of those UFO sightings or like some of those alien encounters,
Yeah.
you know,
That was the other thing too.
maybe
Like
they're real.
I never knew. He talks about how like Bigfoot and UFO sightings are often like conflated. Like you see them at the same time. Like you see Bigfoot and then you see UFO, and like that's crazy. That's wild
They're
to think
disconnected.
about. Yeah. Like is
So-
Bigfoot an alien? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, this is like the real things. Like, these are the real questions of life. And I know, like, sometimes it's a little out there, but like, how often don't you like get caught up with like your parents or your friends and you're just like, okay, so like, if aliens exist, like, what do they look like? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think they look like? Or what do you think they do? Or like, how do you think they react? And like, it could literally be anything, you know,
Yeah.
as far as wide as your imagination can take it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's interesting. So, okay, back when I was in 4th grade, I believe,
Okay.
we talked about War of the Worlds, okay?
Okay.
And he references that in here because War of the Worlds was this radio show, and they were like, oh, we're going to do something special for Halloween. Like, we're going to do this fun, like, back and forth. It's like basically a screenplay, but on radio, and because that's all they had. And people thought it was real because it
Oh,
was on the radio,
no.
and it was about like aliens coming down and like taking over and all this stuff. It was wild.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, but it was cool because like if you knew what the gig was, like
Yeah.
you were like, oh, this is so fun.
Yeah.
This is an interesting
It's a fun little skit.
yeah, like Happy Halloween.
Yeah. Oh no.
And it was crazy. And when we listened to it like as a radio thing, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow, like that, you know, came up again. I mean, there's
Yeah.
been movies made about it since, or like movies that reference it. I mean, there's literally one on Netflix right now, I think.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's
so like,
awesome.
yeah, so like there's something like that, but I thought that was interesting too because I think aliens were kind of a big thing, and even superheroes because of the wars
Yeah.
that were happening, right?
Definitely.
Because they wanted to allow people to kind of not be so fearful,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
in that time frame. So yeah, that was a good one. That was a good memory. I felt like I was like transported back. That's been happening a lot lately. I've been
Yeah.
like going back in time and
Reminiscing.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like, that brought me back. And then, I mean, there's so much I didn't even know in this.
Yeah.
Like about different actors, actresses, those involved, and then even just like some key players in some of these horrific events. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So, that was kind of interesting
Yeah.
to dive into.
And-
But we also wanted to talk about the Philadelphia experiment. Is
Yeah.
that where you're headed?
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, even, like, the Philadelphia experiment apparently is very well known, according to this text, which I had never heard about it. I didn't know. So
right.
that
I
was-
actually haven't heard this one either.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was, like, under a rock or something
No.
like that.
No.
But, so, yeah, that was really interesting because, like, apparently it was, like, this huge, like, phenomenon when it happened. But basically, there was purportedly, we don't know, some sort of experiment where the Navy, I believe it was able to make this giant ship and all of its crew disappear and like reappear in Virginia and then reappear back in like this Navy yard near Philadelphia, something like that. But apparently that happened. They figured out invisibility for a couple minutes. And like it like had all these sort of adverse effects on the crew. Like people died, people were like mutilated, I think it said. They were also talking to a guy. I don't think he was part of the Philadelphia experiment, but he was part of like a similar experiment. And he said that he had gotten like really high doses of radiation and like he was having health complications from that like in the future. So I thought that was really interesting because like there are all these people who swear that this Philadelphia experiment happened and like say they witnessed it or they were on the ship or whatever. But of course, like the Navy is like, that never happened. Like, what do you mean? Like, this was a practical joke. And we were like, so
Wait,
what's
what?
the truth?
I know, and I feel like some of this stuff has a little bit of that to it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say like gaslighting, but like it's just one of those things where like you really don't know unless you were there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because they're trying to like they were. I mean, in this scenario, or is somebody trying to sweep something under the rug? I don't know.
Maybe.
But it sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
You know, and.
Yeah.
I mean, if we didn't hear about it too, like that's the other thing. Like it's kind of like, oh, it keeps people guessing, and then when people discover it, they're like, oh my gosh, like did this happen? Did this not happen? Like, what happened to the people on the ship? Like, were they compensated? Were they not compensated? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was this invisibility? Like, what is going on?
Did we figure out how to be invisible? Like, I don't
know. Yeah, literally.
The other thing that I think about with that too is like, I feel like maybe not with like the Philadelphia experiment specifically because that was a little bit bigger, I think, like larger scale, but I think that if I saw like any of the things down in the mine or like I saw a Bigfoot or like whatever within like 20 minutes to a couple weeks after the phenomenon, I think I would be like, that never happened. Like I think I
was
would
like imagining.
Yeah, exactly. So like I really admire that these people have stuck to their guns so much and been like, no, like this happened because I mean like maybe it did and maybe that's why they're sticking to it, but I don't know. I think I would convince myself pretty quickly, especially again because I'm not a horror paranormal girly. I don't want to believe in that. So
right, like you're kind of cool staying in like the
keep me in the dark
natural of it all. Yeah, and I mean. I love a good conspiracy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
So, like, this kind of screams like there's a lot of different outcomes for this one, which I thought was interesting. And it's so close. You know what I mean? Like, again, proximity, right?
Yeah.
I know the ship went so far and then came back, but like that's literally in Philadelphia. This thing just came up and like everybody was just like, oh,
there's a ship.
all these and like we need to jump into serious high gear because everybody's sick or like you know people are dying. Like this is crazy. So yeah, for me, I'm not so sure. I'm not 100%. I don't know what happened, but it is kind of interesting because they have like the National Archives and Records, which is nice about this book too, is that he has photos and he also has like some of the receipts, if you will.
Yes.
Calling the Philadelphia experiment a practical joke that got out of hand. So like they have this kind of like document. Yeah. And you know, everybody's claiming it's non-existent.
Yeah.
So, only time will tell. Maybe this will be like the alien thing where like in 20 years they finally are like, oh, actually like that did happen. Yeah, you know, and then they'll have like the proof, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. That's honestly also one of the other things I liked about this book is that it was, I don't know, like liked and didn't like it. It was like a little bit frustrating, but like at the same time I got it because like at the end of every chapter pretty much Maxim is sort of like, who knows though? Like maybe this happened, maybe it didn't. And like on the one hand I'm like, take a stance, but on the other hand like nobody knows, you know. Like I kind of appreciated that reminder. Like I'm not saying it's real, but I'm also not saying it's not real, you know.
Like, very balanced. And I think so a part of this book at the end, it really is only 315 pages or 14 pages. The rest is like a bibliography moment here. So he has all his sources, all the research for every single thing, and that's what is that like that's a solid 20 or so pages worth. So, I mean, I feel like it came from like this place of like we've been saying textbook. Like, excuse me, I'm choked up.
So excited.
He was basically trying to teach us about the event. And show us both sides, basically. And I think that it helped. I mean, it helped because it's a little some of these things are a little crazy, but it's good to know where they came from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, not everybody's going to get on board with certain things. Like, how many debates have we heard about some of these?
Too many.
Too many, right? So I think, like, it was well written in that sense.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't so much like an opinion piece.
Yeah.
It was more so like, okay, this is the topic.
Yeah.
This is the one side. This is the other side. Believe what you want.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you could tell this was like a passion of his. Like,
yeah,
and
totally.
I think he says that too. That like this book sort of came because he wrote a previous book like just about the Shepton mystery or Shepton mine incident.
Mhm.
But then he sort of says like this book was born from that because I had all this leftover research and all these other stories that I wanted to tell. So
Right.
here it is. Here's like your sort of anthology almost, like just paranormal activity.
Yeah, and just fun little factoids, because like the one actor that he references, you know, the actor actually passed away, but because
Mhm.
he had filmed all these movies prior, people were like, he's not dead, he is dead, he's not dead, like things like that can be kind of proven, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like, we're kind of these rumors or talked about things, they're also in this book too.
Yeah.
We just kind of picked some of the bigger topics to kind of go over here, because it's thick, you know, it's got a lot of info, it's got a lot of juice, but yeah, there's like fun little things in there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when you kind of put it in perspective, you know, it's kind of a nice transitional read. Like, it's not super heavy on like that mysticism. Like,
Mhm.
you're not being put into like a complete fictional tale.
Yeah.
You know, you got
Yeah.
a little nonfiction here, you got a little bit of research, you got a little bit of what people believe, what people don't believe. And I think that's why this was a solid pick for us here
definitely.
at the
Good
FOX43 Book
October
Club.
pick.
Yeah, so it made it fun. I got in the spooky season mood, and we're going to have more. We're doing a little sit down with him on Zoom.
Yes.
So hopefully you guys will be able to check that out
We'll
after you go through the discussion.
Yeah, we'll post that link when we post this video.
Absolutely. And feel free to comment down below. We're always checking Facebook, and that's how you can get involved with us, the FOX43 Book Club, through our Facebook profile.
Yes.
But, you know, we're not going to stop here.
Mm-mm.
Our next book is coming. Now,
Yes.
despite me being on maternity leave, Kayleigh has got it covered,
I'll
folks.
still be here.
And we will have a fabulous co-host.
Yes.
Our very own Gabrielle Mediak is going
Whoop,
to step in.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be a little different. We're doing a little Q&A action.
Mhm.
We're going to talk a little more about, you know, Kayleigh's insight. She's going to kind of host it, so it'll have like a different flair, but it's going to be fun all the same. So what's our next book that we're going to kind of transition into after this?
So we're going to be reading Confessions of a Farmer's Market Romeo.
Ooh.
Yes, it's by Jim Dubs. Yes, Jim Dubs. He's from Pennsylvania. This book is set in Gettysburg, but Jim was very adamant to say that it is not a war novel. So I'm really excited to read it because I think probably most, if not all, of the novels or movies or whatever that center on Gettysburg are all about the Gettysburg War. So I think that'd be really interesting to sort of get that perspective, get into Gettysburg, you know, this sort of small town, but like in a different way. Different
Yeah.
angle.
And honestly, Gettysburg around this time of year is fabulous.
Yes.
I hear. And
Beautiful.
I was told, I was like, yeah, like maybe I want to go down to do this, that, or the other, because it's like fall, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Fall activities, pumpkin patch, leaf peeping. And they were like, Gettysburg is the perfect place. So this farmer's market moment
Yes.
feels like an awesome way to get us there, especially if you're not in the place to actually go down there.
Yeah.
So
Just get
I'm
into the
excited.
vibe.
Yeah, and it's
Yes.
kind of different than what we just picked up. It sounds like there's more, you know, there'll be more character development.
Mhm.
There'll be kind of a story there that we can dive into.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't had a true like novel
Right.
in a little bit. So
Which
this will
is
be
good.
a nice.
We're changing it up. We
Yeah.
had something like more eyewitness accounts. Now we
Yes.
have kind of this moment where we're learning, we're taking on history, becoming one, and now we can kind of lose ourselves in a little farmer's market romance.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Very excited. And like I said, we're going to be doing that at the end of November,
Mhm.
but I know it's Thanksgiving,
Yes.
so stay with us for updates. We're
We'll
always
let you know the
updating.
date.
Yeah, and they'll be able to take you through that. And like I said, just because I'm taking a hiatus does not mean the book club is.
Never.
So be sure to stay with us. Follow us online and be ready
Yes.
for our next drop.
Yay.
And then we're going to have our librarians as normal too come in
Yep.
live. So we're just doing the thing.
Chugging right along.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate it. Everyone who's
Yes.
sticking with us, who loves to read and read alongside us, continue to spread the word and let everybody know that we're here at Fox 43.
You can find us fox43.com and Facebook, FOX43 Book Club.
Thank you so much, everybody. We hope you have a fabulous rest of your month, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.